will call this meeting to order of June 7th at 6 p.m. And I will just read off of the agenda. Actually, I guess before we get started, Mr. Nixon had just let me know that he is out of town. His daughter has made it to nationals in rowing, and so he is en route to Florida. So, but. Okay, for our agenda, first of all, we have communications from school committee and the administration. Then we have the student representatives report, followed by public comment, reports and discussion items, including the proposed school committee meeting dates from September to June of 2023. The WPS student assessment overview, part 2. Action items, including proposed school committee meeting dates for July 2022 through August 2022. Consideration of approval of a stipend for the school district physician position. Consideration of approval of donation of a shed by the Winchester High School track and field boosters for $16,256.50. Consideration to authorize the superintendent to manage open enrollment for 2022-23, and consideration of approval of minutes as a consent agenda, including March 10th, 15th, 29th, April 12th, 25th, 26th, 28th, and May 9th and 24th minutes, followed by the chair report, the superintendent report, future agenda items, and our next meetings, and adjournment. So with that, we will move straight into communications, and I will turn it over to Dr. Hackett initially.
You will? I think you're going to start, aren't you?
You would like me to start?
Please.
Are we starting?
Yes, I think so.
So tonight we have with us our Director of Special Education, Pam Gerard, and this is one of our last meetings of the school year. This is likely one of the last meetings that she will be able to attend with us, and she will be moving to a new position out of the district. So we just wanted to wish her well and thank her very much for her years of service here, and to the schools, with our staff, with the community. And we just wanted to express our gratitude to you. So, did you want to say something in addition?
Sure. I'm sure other committee members might, but I'll just just say that it has been a pleasure to work with Pam. This is certainly, absolutely, as they say, our loss and someone else's gain. And I'm sure the last 2 years or so has been easy enough for you that you've been able to rest some, so you recovered through the last couple of years as you prepare to enter a new position. So that has to feel good. Well rested. But Pam is, as you know, pretty exceptional at the work she does. And I've worked with quite a few special education directors, and she just has the perfect skill set of being able to really hear and listen, advocate for kids, as well as also understanding the responsibilities of both the law and the resources that are attached to it, and wish you nothing but the best. And I also know where you are, so
We all do.
Thank you.
And I'd like to recognize Pam. I believe, Pam, I worked with you before anyone else when I was at Willow Hill, and you were in Winchester, right? So right when you started in Winchester, I was at Willow Hill.
With you?
Yep, exactly, which were always pleasant, and so I was so excited when I got to be a colleague of yours here. And I'll just say that for those of you that don't know, Pam is going on to be the executive director of the Lab Collaborative, which is a collaborative that's been around for a long time. It's a very, very impressive collaborative, and it's a really important organization in Massachusetts as far as special education goes. So at least in my humble opinion, if there were a one of the most important special education jobs in Massachusetts, it would be the job that Pam has been called for, and so I know that she will do an amazing job and continue what's been a real legacy of excellence at Lab. So I'm excited for her, and I'm excited for Lab, and I'm sad for Winchester, but as Frank said, we have your phone number, so you know, if you don't pick up, we'll just show up. We know where you work.
Know where I am. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is bittersweet change. I'm a firm believer that change is good. I also know that it comes with, you know, highs and lows that go with it. As Seamus had said, this was an opportunity that presented itself that I could not say no to. But I'm leaving a really unbelievable team and unbelievable colleagues that I've worked with, and I'm really quite proud of the work that has been done in the district, and just the commitment from school committee, knowing that you guys were behind a lot, supported some of our not crazy ideas, but hey, we've got an idea, and what do you think? Let's try it. I think I saw Pam Court come in, and I will actually recognize Pam Court also as being instrumental in working with us and really collaborating with getting parent involvement with PAC. So when I say to you, thank you, and it's with a lot of bittersweet emotions, I'm so excited, and I'm sad at the same time. So, you know, Frank did tell me that my room was sparkly the other day. That's because I've been trying to apparently hoard things. If anybody needs something, I might have it. It might be from when I first started teaching in 1982. But minor detail, but very excited. So thank you. Appreciate this opportunity.
And if you thought you were getting away that easily, I think Miss Court has something
Yes,
she'd
Miss
like to
Court
say
wanted to
as
say
well,
something,
and
so-
as do Tom and I. So,
Yes.
we're going to embarrass you a little bit longer.
Yeah, not
Miss Court, would you like to?
really, I kind of like
Ms.
building
Court, would you like to
myself
join us at the table?
being
So,
behind,
and
not
pull up a mic and.
not part of, not in the.
No. All cozy.
I'm good. It's I don't get a chance to see administrators in person as much anymore because of the pandemic, which is a bit of a bummer, because then I didn't really get to touch base with you as much as I would have liked in the last few years. So I have to say, you were instrumental in getting the PAC going again. When I started here, we had a very active PAC, and we unfortunately had a leader who didn't feel the need to support that PAC, and it went kind of defunct for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And one of the first things that you did when you came in, instead of saying, oh good, there's no PAC there, I don't have to hear from parents, it makes my job a lot easier because they're not coordinated, they're not organized, you came in and you said, we are legally obligated to support parents in this community with this group, and you called the meetings and you organized us and got things going again after they had really been completely defunct for a good number of years. And that's led to, I think, a huge change in the relationship between parents and administration. It's led to improved communications, it's led to more collaboration, and I'm so grateful for that. As co-chair of the PAC for 2 years, it was a pleasure working with you. I know one of the other long-term PAC leaders who couldn't be here tonight, Stacy, worked with you and really just enjoyed working with you so much. And we just feel so lucky. The child that I have that's on an IEP just graduated, and I have to say, especially in those middle school years that were so hard, when things were really tricky, we got a lot of support from you, and I so deeply appreciate it. It made a huge difference, and And I'm very grateful for your presence here and everything that you've done for the community and for the schools. And so I just wanted to say thanks and that I will miss you very much.
Thank you. I might start to cry.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to say something really short. So,
Oh.
I have worked with you since a little bit before I started on school committee, and there are educators that touch lives, that hold children and families in their hands and in their hearts. And I know that every decision that you have made about kids and families in Winchester has involved kids, families, teachers. You believe in building collaborative relationships. And even when things get hard and get frustrating, you still believe in it. And I think that's an incredibly special thing, and I think it's been a real gift to our district, and it's allowed us to explore things like co-teaching and inclusion in ways that we couldn't have collaborated as a team, as a school committee, as leadership teams, without that true passion and love and belief that all kids need to be included in the general education setting every day. And it's hard to replace that. So I agree with Seamus. Lab is lucky to get you, and we wish you all the best.
Wow. I'm not sure how much more I can add, but to say, it is indeed a bittersweet moment. I mean, your legacy here with the district has been, enormous and positive, and you leave very large shoes to fill, which will be a challenge for Frank. But most importantly, we do wish you the best of success. We know the collaborative is fortunate to have you, and we know you'll do great things wherever you go, and we're grateful for your time here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us these opportunities. I really, I don't have much more to add. I don't really like being the center of attention or having much attention. And I like to set it up so that other people can kind of take it and run with it. I couldn't have done it without the team at school committee. Teachers, the parents that were willing to put up with some of my antics and crazy ideas. But I thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And you will be receiving one of the silver apples. So it will come towards the end of June. But let's see. Oh dear, I guess I should have unwrapped this. Okay. This is like Japanese wrapping.
Box within the box.
Right.
So,
Karen likes drama.
Perfect size for a cupcake.
yes,
the
that's
big
right.
reveal.
So everyone watching knows what it looks like.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's the big reveal.
Exactly, right.
That's right. Let's see. A little cup, a little.
Ooh.
So, yes, the teacher's apple. And I won't try to put it back in.
Let me help
Just,
you.
yes.
Please.
That was a little bit much.
No, that's perfect.
So, but yes, little dashing. So, congratulations, Pat.
Thank you.
And thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Pam.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting.
Yes.
You know,
I
I
think you
might
get to
actually
leave now.
pass on that. I might say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Take cake to go.
No, I'm gonna come back tomorrow and get that.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay. With that, we can move on to other communications from the school committee. Let me just see. I will kick us off with a few. We will have the dedication of the Manchester basketball courts will be taking place June 11th with generous funding from the Memorial fundraising team to Coach Bob Bigelow. Those basketball courts have been completed, and so we're looking forward to seeing that. Tomorrow, June 8th, we have Pride Fest. This will be in town, is the second annual student-led Pride Fest from 5 to 7 p.m. I was going to say rain or shine, but I think there is a rain date. This is, please join members of Spectrum and QSA and the social justice student clubs and the Network for Social Justice student interns. It is a free, family-friendly event, and it is open to all. Later in the summer, this is looking ahead a bit, but we'll have our, this is just an outcome. So we had been searching for a date for a workshop for school committee, and we will have that on August 30th. So please just mark your calendars with that, with the idea that we will kick off the school year, the next school year with that.
What time is that going to be?
It will be 6 p.m.
Great, thank you.
And if there are any other communications from school committee members, I welcome you this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I was informed by the vice chair of the select board that our request for a preschool study did not go forward. So I would just share that with the committee, and I would hope that we can discuss that outcome soon and make an alternate plan based on that outcome. I know that's not finalized, but that was I was informed that that's the direction things are going. So
The ARPA funding specifically.
not
Right. Yep.
optimistic
Yep.
on that.
Anything else? Dr. Hackett?
I do not. We have a hearty crew here this evening to do, so I have nothing to provide on the communications tonight.
Okay. So I have on our agenda the student representatives report. And unfortunately, my email to them had not gone out. So that is purely my fault. And my apologies to our student council representatives, but we will take you up at our next meeting, I am sure. So with that, we will come to public comment, and I'll just read this for the benefit of our public commenters. Public comment shall be for a period of 20 minutes. It's not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the committee. It's a citizen's opportunity to express their opinion on issues on the agenda or of school committee business. Any individual wishing to speak before the committee shall identify themselves by name and address and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. And all individuals shall speak to the full committee through the chair and shall not address individual members or administrators. So I believe we offer both in-person and remote public comment, but I believe we have no remote, public comment registers. So with that, I will move to our in-person public comment. And so I welcome you to come to the table and join us. And I would just take
And then she doesn't have to jump over the cords, is that
Oh,
okay?
there are cords? Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
got
You're
it.
welcome to sit
Yes,
there.
please
Once
take
you
that.
grab
So
hands,
used to
yeah.
jumping over cords?
We don't want any mishaps.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you,
avoid
Ms. Hope.
confusion.
I'll talk into here. Sure. So good evening, school committee members. Thank you for having me here.
And could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
My name is Paula Ho, and I live at 18 Brookside Avenue in Winchester with my husband and 3 children, all of whom are in the Winchester public school system. My oldest is graduating from McCall Middle School next week. My second is graduating from Morocco, and then my youngest is in 2nd grade. I'm here tonight to make a public comment about the agenda item to authorize the superintendent to manage open enrollment for year 22 to 23. I am in support of open enrollment and of allowing the superintendent to manage the process, as I believe it creates a mechanism where the unique needs of our children in our school system can be met while also balancing the broader needs of the district. I think some of the examples of these unique needs were raised during the discussion at the last school committee meeting, from logistical concerns such as closer proximity to the school, to a school that is not the designated school, or for emotional needs such as instances of bullying. I want to just briefly share my family situation as an example of how open enrollment can be used to benefit our district's children. Our family has been living in the Morocco district for 7 years now, and for different reasons, need for more space, we will be moving to a home in the Lynch district this summer. This will primarily impact my youngest daughter, who is going to 3rd grade. We believe it would be in her best interest, and also logistically for the district too, to use open enrollment to keep her at Morocco instead of transitioning her to Lynch. For one, our new home is actually closer to Morocco than our current home is, and also closer to Morocco than it is to Lynch. Our new home will be a short 8-minute walk to Morocco, whereas Lynch would require us to drive across some of Winchester's busiest streets or to use the school bus. Additionally, our daughter struggles with social anxiety disorder, making it difficult for her to talk to her teachers, socialize with other children, especially in new situations. For a long time, she would only speak in whisper to her teachers and had trouble with basic tasks like ordering school lunch. The transitions brought about by COVID only made this more challenging for her. It has taken her 3 years at Morocco to finally start feeling comfortable at school and is now able to raise her hand, talk in class, and even make a few friends. I'm very grateful for her teachers who have worked hard to build relationships with her, some of them since kindergarten. And I feel like we are just finally able to see positive results and hopefully a sign of continued growth. Switching schools at this point would greatly set her back in her development, and the professionals from whom we have sought advice, including her pediatrician, have agreed that it would be in her best social, emotional, and educational interest to avoid a huge transition of transferring to a new school. Open enrollment would allow school administration the flexibility to consider circumstances like our daughters, so that Winchester children can be placed in environments where they would best thrive, especially after a very challenging couple of years. For these reasons, I would be grateful for the school committee's support for open enrollment, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other commenters for public comment. So with that, I will close public comment at this time, and we will move into our agenda. So we do have proposed school committee meeting dates as the first order of business, but we do have our educators here to join us this evening. So with school committee members' consent, I would ask to move the educators forward on our agenda this evening.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will start with the Winchester Public Schools Student Assessment Overview, Part 2. And we had initially, or school committee had initially heard, Part 1 on formative assessments back in mid-April. And these are the daily assessments that our educators use to assess student grasp of material and to help inform and adjust their teaching plan in real time, as just a very simplistic way of saying that from my perspective. And Dr. Ellen Emma will lead us through the next few steps of the pyramid that was introduced to us at that time, including benchmark, common, and summative assessments. And then we will welcome our educators shortly. I will introduce you in a minute.
Thank you. I will be very brief because the stars of the show are here. So I just want to give a couple of quick things that we just talked about before, but we didn't really focus on some of the pieces that are coming for tonight. So just as a reminder, our goals are really about both our academic and our SEL standards, and we really try to think about our assessments as multiple ways to measure those things, and that it's interesting. I was just in a meeting this morning with the Grading for Equity folks, and just talking about the complexity of how we measure these different things and how important that is to the students that we embrace that complexity. And again, all of our work around social justice and those pieces, so really thinking about our approach of windows and mirrors and how we really work with our students. So this was the pyramid. Like Karen said, we talked about the formative last time. This time, this group will touch on some amazing work around common classroom assessments, benchmark, which is done across that grade or across that course, and summative assessments. And again, just this any assessment we do is always just to inform our practice, so we know what next steps to take with the students. Everyone has worked. I just cannot say enough about districts talking about just trying to hold steady through the pandemic, and how I just have to say we have more than held steady here. People have done amazing work in the midst of this. Again, I was just saying this morning as I'm on the Zoom at like 7:20 the week before school ends, people are there learning new things, still going. It's amazing. So this you can refer back to. The PowerPoint will be in the folder if it isn't already, but just kind of a little bit of a definition of what these kinds of assessments are and what they look like in the classrooms. And we have Catherine here from the elementary. They'll introduce themselves. And then we have some secondary to share. As you remember, our last presentation was primary elementary. We wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to showcase the awesome work. So one thing I would say after last time was I would say to ask people in between if they have questions, because then at the end it just seemed like it was a long time ago, back from the beginning. So before each person leaves, plus they have to vault over the wires, like feel free to ask them the questions after they share their pieces. All right, Catherine, it's all you.
I vaulted over the handlebars of my bike this weekend, so I'm a little...
Intentionally or not?
No, it was not intentional. So I'll be very gingerly crossing the wires. Is this where I sit?
That looked amazingly flexible.
So thanks for having me. Hi, I'm Catherine Dwyer, and I know some of you, but not all of you. And I am the Elementary Science, Technology, and Engineering Coordinator for the district. And I would like to talk a little bit about the performance-based assessments we're doing in science. I will say that I skipped one. I feel very lucky to teach science and engineering and to be a coordinator in science and engineering, because PBAs are a big focus for us, and it is a very natural fit. So in some way, it makes my job easier, although we still have a lot of work to do in terms of creating meaningful assessments for teachers and for students and families. So it is a natural fit, though, because really what science and engineering is about is problem solving, applying what you know in order to come up with, especially engineering, to a solution to a problem. So that's where it can be, in some ways, like easier for us to come up with good common assessments for the end of our units, which really allow a lot of creativity, oftentimes a lot of collaboration between students, and are very open-ended because they are about solving problems that children can identify with. So the other thing I just wanted to say in general is that we have a strand that's newish in our science standards, which is human impact on the world and the environment. Though the way we've prioritized our standards, we haven't always put the focus on those elements of the standards. It is new to us. They often are incorporated into our assessments, as you'll see, because they are a very good meshing with what we're trying to do with assessment. So I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of snapshots along the way, not from every grade level, just a few of them. And yeah, I hope people will ask questions and also tell me to stop talking if I'm... That's how I know, Karen, that's always a good thing to do. Just so you know. So this is just an example of what we're trying to do from second grade. So one of their standards in science is basically weathering and erosion and creating solutions to prevent weathering and erosion from happening. So again, really a very perfect fit. This one I've worked with many teachers on this particular assessment, and basically it's very integrated into the unit itself. So a great way to start, there's many ways to teach this. A great way to start, VO is actually the perfect school to do this at because it is so much on a hill. It's a perfect opportunity. So kids will walk around their school building, but all of our buildings have erosion and weathering happening, so there's lots of examples. But walking around either the neighborhood or the building and finding examples of where this is a problem, and where engineers have tried to come up with solutions to solve it. So this is like engaging kids in something that's in their immediate surroundings that they are familiar with. Kids often pay so much more attention to the details in their neighborhoods and their surroundings than adults do. So the kids will notice every little thing that could be connected to this, and that's what they do. And they try to crawl into drainage ditches, and that's all part of the process. They don't worry, but it's part of learning about it. And then they come up with models. And a lot of the assessments it's not a test. A lot of it is coming up with a solution. So this is a snapshot of partway through the process where they're testing out different materials to prevent a beach, a hillside, whatever it is, from eroding into the water, the sidewalk, whatever it might be. So this is just like along the path, as I said, because kids are testing specific materials because they're also learning about properties of different materials. Turns out there's a reason why those seawalls fail. The popsicle sticks is often not the best solution, even though you think it's going to be. And then the next step would be they combine what they've learned into creating. So it's the engineering process. They test, they try, they think about what might work, they try it out, they learn from each other. Part of this is going around and seeing the successes and the failure points of other kids' solutions, and then they combine different aspects based on what they've learned to come up with a novel solution. So that's just an example. Here's a little bit from third grade. This one's a little hard to see, but they design, one of their things is forces in motion and magnetism. So the project here is to design a model maglev train. So it's an elevated train that uses magnets. It's actually, I think the most important thing to me about this particular assessment is that it's a lot harder to do this than it looks like it is or you think it's going to be. So what the student's holding in their hands is the model. It's tiny, and they look at it and they're so disappointed. They're like, "Oh, we want to do a train all the way around the classroom. And I'm like, great, but first let's start with this one. And it's extremely challenging. You actually do have to understand how friction works. You do have to understand the attractive and opposing forces of magnets. You do have to understand balanced and unbalanced forces in order to be successful. And so throughout the process, kids stumble a lot. And that's honestly part of it. That's part of what we're looking at, is how do they then manage those failure points, their disappointments, their frustrations, and get beyond it. And this is why this is actually it looks terrible, but it's one of my favorite things. It's one of the things the kids are most proud of, because when they finally get it, when they finally solve the problem, they're incredibly proud of themselves, and they're also really confident that they know they can explain to me how and why this works, what is actually happening here. And to me, that's when I'm like, okay, we nailed it on that one. Speaking of which, I want to say a little bit about what are we actually assessing? Where's the actual test? Where's the assessment? Because that's a box with magnets and tape and cardboard in it. You know what I mean? You can't line that up on the table with all the kids in the class and put a grade on it. That's not, that wouldn't work in this case. You can see if it works or not, their solution. But really what we're assessing in this case is we're assessing not only the product, but the process of how they got there and what they had to do. And so the actual assessment that goes home often looks more like this, this is actually an example of a rubric from a 5th grade unit, a different one, but the 3rd grade one looks fairly similar. And it usually will have the points on the standards that we're addressing with this particular assessment or any other one. And also for the upper grades, there'll be one that I fill out and one that the student fills out for themselves. And if they worked in a collaborative team, they will still individually fill out theirs. And it's almost always, there's a lot of similarities between what I see in their work and what they see in their work. And that too is part of the process, is them reflecting and thinking, what did I learn through this process? What can I do? What do I know? What do I need to do further? So that's, I think, just important to mention. Because a lot of these things don't look like assessments. 4th grade, going a little bit further even, this is an example of one that I've worked with a lot of teachers on they learn about the transfer and transformation of energy. And it's actually extremely abstract. So I often tell the kids, if this is hard to understand at the beginning, don't worry, because apparently physicists don't actually agree on what energy even is. So if you don't know what it is, guess what? Neither do adults, neither do people who actually are in the field. And that's okay, but what's amazing is to see again through the process of problem solving and collaboration, how they learn fluidly to explain what is going on. And so the actual assessment, they have to create something that runs on stored energy, because they have to go through the process of understanding how energy moves from place to place. It changes form along the way. We can store it. which is important, and then we can use it to do the things we need to do. And they, as part of the process, they learn about renewable versus non-renewable energy, solar energy, wind and water energy, and so forth. So this is just an example of a kid trying out his groups, what they designed in the sink, which it didn't go very far in the sink, but it did work. And again, in this assessment, I can't actually show you. You could look at the project, but what we actually filled out, the teacher and I both filled out the rubrics. What we and the children filled out rubrics on wasn't just what they created. It was them explaining to us what they created in the process, and what came through in that, how they could convey what went into it was a big part of the process of, it was a big part of what we were assessing. So I wish I had the rubrics for that, but I don't. They were really interesting. This is just the last one I'll show as an example, and I very rarely put a piece of writing, as Jen will tell you, there's very rarely a picture that I take of a piece of writing, only because I bend the stick in science towards, there's many ways for us to express what we understand and to show what we know, and writing is one of them. It is not the only one, it is not the best one in all cases. So we want our assessments to be able to have kids show what they've learned about science and engineering, however it makes the most sense. And so for this kid, writing was the best way to do it. It's very eloquent. She actually, or he gave, I don't actually know, gave a really eloquent argument, because the question, what they're learning about is how energy and matter cycles in the ecosystem. So how the sun's energy and all the stuff, all the plants and animals, go round and round and round. And the question that we posed as the assessment was, should we have all these rat traps outside of our schools? There are rat traps outside all of our schools. Should they be there? So that was what kids had to grapple with. And they had to answer that question by looking at evidence. They actually dissected a classic lesson. They dissected an owl pellet. They found evidence of how a rodent or a bird goes through the cycle from eating plants, from the energy from the sun, into the plant, into the rodent, into the owl. What happens when you take out a part of that system? So when we take out the rats, we need to take out the pests, but when we do so, there's a consequence to the system. What do you think about that? Should we be doing that? Is that the right approach for us to have? So, and this is one student's answer in writing. This is one student's answer on a poster. I would love to see something like this go a little further into them answering in a form of advocacy, or further research. You know, what are the alternatives in town to some of these things? What can they learn about alternatives in agriculture to some of these things? But maybe that's for middle and high school. That's for you guys. All right. So are there any questions, or, I know that was an earful. It's always an earful, I'm sorry.
It's always a good earful.
It's always an earful.
I actually have a
We
question.
still have our, I was just going
Yeah.
to say, we still have our Maglev train.
Oh, do you?
I think it's 7 years later.
Yay!
I did not know what it was.
Now you know.
But now I feel a little guilty because I did not realize the
Oh, well, the
sense of
kids
pride
are,
and the benefits coming out of that simple.
yeah. So the thing is, like, usually there's a kid that made one and they're like, I still owe the mom a video, because it's, the video is where you see, it's the child explaining, and he's like, please send it to my mom so she can understand. So it's like, that's where you see what the learning is. It's no wonder that you don't see it in the Maglev box. Yeah.
So, first of all, I love this. And my question kind of goes to what you just described. Do we explicitly teach students to be able to reflect and express back, either in whatever form they're doing? Do they kind of have some sense of the kind of things that they should be thinking about, or critical questions they should be asking themselves as they try to communicate back what they've learned and whatever it is that they have taken away from the assessment?
So I think that we need to move, yes, but we need to continue to move, I feel like, in that direction. So all teachers do that in different ways, and sometimes that element is structured directly into an assessment, and sometimes it's left more up to the teacher. So some of it's practice. Like, this is my practice. When I teach a unit and when I work with a teacher on a unit, we do have the child and us do rubrics. And I think that that's just, and it's not a judgment on them. It's an empowering thing.
Right. Right.
For them. Sometimes it's built in terms of they are teaching another student or an adult
Yep.
about what they've, it's that process
Right.
where they're not just presenting, they're gonna teach information. So I think it comes in different ways, but
Yep.
yes, that self-reflection I think it's crucial.
Oh,
I
it's
think
critical,
That's
right.
where most of the learning shows.
Right,
Is
right.
in what and where it's most important, because of what they own.
Right. And how they can communicate it.
Right,
Right.
and how they can communicate it.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Hopcroft?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to comment before you leave.
Yes.
No, it's okay.
I mean, thank you for your answer.
And thank
I
you
should
for
be more
keeping,
explicit.
and thank you for your attention to the time of our meeting and getting up really quickly there. But, I love this. It really brings to life, a lot of how these assessments work. And I don't know if there are ways to anonymize or get consent, but what would be wonderful to add to this is seeing, a sample rubric and is seeing and actually seeing the video that you're talking about,
Yes.
so that we get, not just, oh, here's what they did, but we
Yes.
can actually see the assessment part of it and how they respond. And I know there's privacy issues and stuff in there, but I think this is great. Thank you.
And I really appreciate your suggestion. I was actually there's a link that's not linked in here. So I was actually planning on including, my problem is I have 20,000 pictures on my phone and
Yeah.
videos of Winchester, and I don't live anywhere near her. So it's like, sometimes we do always get permission. I'm very careful about not sharing
Right.
things that we don't have permission. Sometimes we do, but because in this case, I was really in the mix in some of the videos that I have, and I just wasn't 100% sure
Yeah.
I'd gotten that permission. But I agree with you. It would be great to have some. I think that would be great, not only for the community, but honestly for teachers to share between
Right.
schools. And I think it's powerful when you hear a student explaining themselves something. So I think that we need to do that. We need to, and rubrics are a little bit easier because I'm just not good at making sure I have copies before they go to the student and the teacher. But that's a little bit easier to do samples and just cross out names. We can definitely do that. So
Yeah.
thank you for the suggestion, though. I think you're right.
I have a quick question for you.
I'll just add on. I loved the in the science video that you and another educator had developed and shown to us a few months ago. I loved the video at the end with the student reading her work. It was great. Yeah.
So cute. That one, and I triple checked to make sure, because I also
Yeah.
with the wind cam and everything,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, don't put the kids out there. But that one, a lot of the parents during the closures, parents did give explicit permission to share the students' work, and that was a nice place to get student voices from and student faces from. So.
Ms. Bergstrom?
So I know that at elementary school, we're still using, a standards-based report card, and the rubrics probably fit along with those nicely. I'm curious to know, you've been doing this for a while. It's been well integrated more into sort of the elementary curriculum over the last 5 years. Are you getting any feedback from parents about getting rubrics home versus a test with 100% on it? Are parents talking any more about understanding what skills and abilities students have around science than just science A on the report card, especially at elementary school?
I think that's a good question. It doesn't come to me. So the teachers I haven't heard, let me put it that way. And we have to keep in mind too, science is the low, on the list of priorities in all districts, in all states, science tends to be low just because the feeling is that we know this isn't true, but that there are other areas that are slightly more important. So, so I have not heard that feedback. It may be coming to teachers. It would be a good thing to find out if it is coming to teachers. I think most of the time I've had good experiences with the kind of rubrics that we use when I've used them and had direct contact with families. Myself. We are with the progress report. We're only next year for science going to really a standards based. We haven't been quite there yet. We're there with math and ELA in elementary, but we're moving in that direction. So this process is something that we're all working on, I think, is what I'm trying to say. I'm working on, our leadership is working on, but teachers are working on, it's underway for all of us, and I'll be excited to get more feedback from parents and the community and find out what people do think about these kinds of assessments. as it gets out there right now, gets out there more. It's uneven right now.
Okay.
Uneven, I would say, in terms of our application. So I'm giving examples of things that I have the most familiarity with, which are oftentimes things I've participated in.
Right.
Because I co-teach a lot with teachers in order to try out things.
Yep.
And to develop curriculum. So that's the way we develop units. So,
Thank you.
did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
It did. It sounds like
Okay.
it's still a work in progress, but it sounds like it's going to fit in nicely with where we're moving in the district and being
Yeah.
able to keep parents
I hope so.
sort of a little better informed, probably even
I
than
hope
a
so.
traditional reporting system
With more specific
with more
information,
specific
I'm
skills
hoping.
and understanding the continuum of science
Yeah.
and
I would love
skills
to
as
have a
how
way
they
to
build.
get that feedback from families too. Right now, we just don't have it like baked in, but it would be great to have some kind of route for that to get to coordinators and directors get it probably more than I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Watch your step.
No repeating of the bike.
Right. No workers' comp claims, please.
Now we have Mr. Krahayotz joining us.
Move up to my slide. Hi, I'm Chris Krahayotz. I'm the Director of Social Studies for grades 6 through 12. And I have shared just a couple of examples of the kinds of formative and summative assessments that we do both at the middle school and the high school. And then there's a couple that I wanted to highlight to Catherine's point. Both of them are more of the process-based kinds of projects. And this is something that we're trying to work more towards, I think, in social studies. As these formative and summative assessments kind of show, is that we are, history department, history classes have always had that stereotype if you just need to know like people, places, and events, and we're much more about kind of the cause and effect, and we want people to be looking at multiple perspectives. And so even at our department meeting today, that's been one of the things that we probably lamented the most about what COVID had done to our classrooms, is just the limits on conversations that we could have, limits on group work. But even to Dr. Lanema's point, people were still finding creative ways to do that digitally because it is something that's valued in the classrooms. And so this is just an example of some of the different summative assessments that we do. So there are still traditional unit tests, but from students in 6th grade designing their own Stone Age village and Greek city-states to, I did want to put the faux social media. I know that it's a transitional age when you've got 13 or 14-year-olds in 8th grade being asked to create fake Instagram accounts or fake book accounts as they have been. But that's been something that teachers have been using in the 8th grade to use these fake Twitter accounts. So they just use a template. They don't actually create an account to get people to join their revolution during the kind of the build up to the March for Independence in the 1770s. But the one that I want to highlight for middle school is the Civics Action Project. It's something that Governor Baker signed into law, that it's an expectation that in 8th grade and then also at some point in the high school, students will engage in a Civics Action Project where they identify a community issue and then work either individually or in a group to develop a plan. So to Catherine's point, this may be where they could kind of start to tackle some of the issues about, putting some of those questions into the process. And that's actually one of the things that ultimately, in talking with other directors, is something we would like to even see, because I think the Civics Action Project, both, at the middle school, maybe more specifically to tie into the 8th grade civics curriculum, but then at the high school, there's a discussion. Why should it just be in a social studies curriculum? Why couldn't there be the kind of application of civic engagement in a science classroom or in the math classroom? So it's still kind of, again, in its infancy with COVID and some of the problems that had brought about. This was our first year of piloting the program and piloting the project. And so on the left side is the process that kids go through. So that idea of the civic identity examination, it's getting students to think about, who am I as a citizen? What's my role? What's my power? What are the kinds of things that are important to me? And what are the kinds of resources that are available to me within my community to be able to work to solve some problems? And then Then they work together to identify a problem that's important to them. I don't have to necessarily read through the steps there for you, but this was something that the 8th grade teachers worked this summer to coordinate a plan on. They worked with our partners at the MCIEA to develop some of the ideas behind this performance-based assessment. The teachers this year were working very much together, trying to make sure that they were implementing it and being able to support each other in more of a uniform way. So this was implemented in the 8th grade class in March, and I think wound up by April vacation. And so I think it was impressive the number of different topics that kids came up with. And so I had a chance to get into some of the classrooms when the kids were discussing them and debating them. And so I thought a pretty bold step into the affordable housing, venturing into that. I think anybody could benefit from some action there. A few directors here received an email from the Diversity in the Curriculum Committee. They were advocating and made a nice website on the different ways that they'd like us to look at the curriculum in the schools. And
Chris, we have a school finance director position open, so I noticed that was, maybe we can talk afterward if you have some names.
Okay.
Just curious.
All right.
Yeah.
So, again, this was an interesting thing where students took different kinds of actions, and I think one of the things that I've learned, and even talking with some directors in other schools, is that it might be best in the future to alert people in the community that they may be hearing from some students, because you've got over 300 students engaging in this project, and I don't know if... Okay, yeah.
I like the authenticity. You don't get an alert.
It just all of a sudden kind of came out there, I don't know how they feel at the DPW with the number of emails that they may have received there. I know Principal Lynn received plenty of them.
We may have seen a backpacker email.
You got a few of those. Yeah, I feel like I may have an example in there for the letters to the school committee. So, and I think that became a part of it, students identifying who their resources are, who can help them out. I think one of the things, and so again, I think a very key thing, and even a kind of to speak to student privacy and to other issues, I think one of the things that also we were kind of negotiating our way through is how do you survey? How do you begin to ask some of the questions? How personal can you be? There was a great deal of concern with student mental health, but there were some students who maybe were so excited they were sending out their surveys ahead of time before having them vetted, by their teacher, and they just kind of want to make sure that they're not breaching any particular confidences with their classmates. So, there is this learning process about how to get the information, but from informational videos, informative websites, I believe, I'm not sure if those links are active on there, but, to your point about being able to look at some of the different resources. There's your school committee copy of the school committee letter. But I think one of the things, too, that we've found with this, and we'll keep talking about, is that it was a pilot. I think, we wanted to go through the process, have kids go through the steps. There was some reflection on it. One of the things that the students reflected on is it's a tight window. You can't always have that action taking place at the end of 6 weeks of implementing a process. So you design your action plan, but maybe it's best to try to do something like that maybe either in the fall or later. So that's something, and something as the 8th grade teachers and I talk is, how do we want to potentially maybe spread this out over a larger course of the second and third trimester, so that maybe there is some earlier part of implementation, but then we kind of revisit it a little bit later in May, so they have a chance to potentially either put that action in place and then reflect on it, or maybe the action comes a little bit later down the road, depending on what topic they identified. But it is an important project, and one that I think, by and large, talking with the teachers, and the teachers getting the feedback from their students, that they all, I think, enjoyed it. I think the idea of the students taking what they're learning in the civics class and going out and applying it and becoming much more active in their community is very important. And we've seen this over the past few years, more and more people becoming active, more civically engaged, and so being able to support that is something that we're excited to do, and hopefully we can do different things to showcase the work that the students are doing, either creating an opportunity to share some of the PSAs. The one about cracks in the sidewalk, Some great acting in that one, and the websites, the informative websites that are being shared. So I mean, I think that's something that we would like to do, is figure out more and more ways, once we kind of had this under our belt, to how do we then showcase the student work for the community. And at the high school, I'll kind of go quickly, but again, some of the same ideas of trying to engage people in conversations. Sometimes, again, we get to the high school, there's even more content to be able to try and address, and so the idea, especially the jigsawed readings and the Socratic seminars, allow for a lot of processing within the class of a lot of different content and being able to share different perspectives. I think that teachers, myself included, found that the pandemic, either with the shortened periods, the hybrid, it just didn't make as much sense to do as many unit tests anymore at that point, and finding different ways to do assessments. And so some of my favorite, and some of the teachers have been doing, is having students design, what would be an ideal museum exhibit for medieval China, or a memorial park for World War II memorial park, incorporating different concepts. So it's not as much about what happened at each of these battles, but kind of what are some of the big picture takeaways that you could have. But there's a Google Maps project that people were designing as well too, where they're kind of designing a kind of a tour of World War II sites through Google Maps. And so I think that applying the different kinds of platforms has been very strong. I'm going to talk a little bit about a project that has been kind of a staple in the social studies department for 20 plus years. I mean, since I've been there, I was in the department as a teacher. The National History Day project, it's a national project, but it's a great research-based project, and one where students really have an opportunity to get into a authentic sense of identifying a historical topic, developing an original thesis, conducting a lot of original research, and then beginning to experiment with how do I display all of that information to convey support of my thesis. There are limits on the amount of words that they can have. So it's not that they could just print up a bunch of things potentially from online, slap it up onto their project and show it. So they really have to kind of, what tells my story the best? I think the fact that you have the different opportunities, both from a research paper, creating exhibits, documentaries, websites. Unfortunately, although this is something that's more statewide, performances have kind of gone by the wayside. It's always fun to see an original, performance about a different historical topic, but we haven't had as many of those lately. But there's a national theme every year, and what we emphasize when the students do this in this class is really find something you're interested in digging into, that you want to find out more about, because for us it's about the idea of historical research, developing an argument, defending and supporting an argument, and presenting that in a kind of clear and concise way. And so these are just some many different examples. It is a competition as well, so the shorthanded way is calling it a science fair for history projects, but that kind of a concept. And we've been hosting the State History Day competition at the high school for the past few years. Typically, Winchester students, we ask all of them to create a project, but they don't have to move into the competition if they don't want to. But we typically have students do quite well. And the Montreal Protocol was the first place winner in the individual website category, and so they are going to be competing either now or very shortly in the virtual National History Day competition. But there are, I think the video may be live in there as well. So there's just the Winchester students create incredible projects, very, very thoughtfully created and developed, and it's a great, again, we kind of tell them it's a little bit like a roller coaster, because there's going to be some of the ups and downs, and when you end up choosing what you're going, so it's kind of when you go to the amusement park, pick the ride that you want to get locked into, but once you hear that click, you're going to kind of have the thrills of research are like the thrills of a roller coaster. Sometimes your stomach is going to drop out, and but at the end, you feel the sense of exhilaration of something that was accomplished. And so, and that's something that we're just trying to emphasize more and more in the social studies department, is more of the process-based learning. We had some more discussions this year in the department about different kinds of rubrics for using, and so we've been talked about analytical rubrics and even some of the single-point rubrics, and how those can help us to give students feedback, but put the emphasis on the process as opposed to where the grade lands. So, oh, that is the Hawaii's
When you
annex.
think of Hawaii, what do you think of? Is it the luscious beaches and majestic volcanoes, the warm greetings and welcoming?
All right, so there is a the annexation of Hawaii video in there if anybody wants to watch that. And so this is just kind of, again, the overall goals that we have for social studies assessments, especially the emphasis on multiple perspectives, critical thinking, and the ability to create, defend, and support your arguments. But that's a little bit about what's been going on in social studies, and I'll just, if you have any questions about any of that.
Just a comment. I want to appreciate what you're doing with the Civics Action Project. I don't know if you know, but last night at the special town meeting, there was a high school student who actually spoke.
Oh.
And if you-
That was Arya Ramachandran.
Oh, okay, very nice.
And if you listen to what he said, it was very impressive. In my humble opinion, it stood out. He was probably the most well-spoken person who spoke at the meeting. His points were very clear and very well reasoned, and it was very, very impressive. And I have to imagine that is thanks to a lot of what all of you are doing. So it was very impressive. It was a nice demonstration of what Winchester teachers do in action.
Yeah.
Because he came and he kind of showed everyone this is the preparation I have.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed, and I think a lot of others at the meeting were as well.
Well, that's nice to hear.
And his mother said afterwards, I was really worried, but he put it together at 6 o'clock. But I think it was doubly impressive for that.
And also real world.
Yeah.
Right.
Also real world.
Right.
And also to the point that so much of the learning really comes before, like it's not just.
It's not the finished product.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
All right,
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Really exciting.
Now I have Miss Plosky.
Like the opposite. It's
Maneuvering
really
the
just a
wires.
test.
Thank goodness I cut the cord.
You need the little things on the floor like they have in elementary school on the way there.
So thank you for having me. I am Carolyn Plosky, the Director of English, and tonight I'm really just focusing on the idea of a common assessment across an entire grade level. So this could be happening at any of our English class, any grade level. Tonight I'm just highlighting grade 10 because it would look approximately the same regardless of the grade level. And so what this means is there's a common task that all 10th graders engage in regardless of the teacher they have. So all 15 sections of 10th grade English, regardless of whether it's a language-based class, whether it is a co-taught class, whether it's a college preparatory class, or whether it's an honors class, are all being assessed on the same exact assignment with the same expectations using the same rubric. So for example, the assignment that we're looking at tonight is that the students are expected to write a narrative essay or memoir about a meaningful personal experience. And while some people do that in real life, we don't consider this to be a PBA. There aren't many people who write memoirs for a living professionally. These are all aligned with one of the full-length class texts that would be engaged in during a particular unit. So for 10th grade, you can see one of the 3 choices that a teacher might pick to study during that unit with their 10th grade class. So these are all full-length professional examples of memoir writing. It's hard sometimes, though, for students to imagine transferring the skills from a full-length work to a shorter essay. So teachers also use professional exemplar narrative essays. So these are things that you might find in the New York Times or in the Atlantic or on a website. So professional examples of the writing that they are about to engage in. So the prompt that all students would receive would be to write a 3 to 4 page narrative essay or memoir about a meaningful personal experience. And they would consider structuring their narratives in any of the following ways. So the examples that we just saw are aligned to different styles that a student might use in creating their particular essay. The writing process would be followed again regardless of the teacher and the level that they would be studying this. So there are all different steps in the writing process that pretty much go through the same order regardless of the teacher you have and the time of year that you're doing this.
And then what's great about these is there are always mini lessons that are layered on top of these, and these are really based on the students' needs of the students in front of them. So for example, mini lessons that often fit with memoir writing are using things like sensory details, voice, emotion, and showing versus telling. And so often what that means is a teacher might start a class period that way with a short mini lesson for a skill that might be the focus for the day, and then the students would be applying that. Now it's definitely based on the needs of the students in front of you, but often those are consistent across a grade level, and teachers work together to develop those mini lessons that would be used in those particular class periods. But the magic of a common assessment, as engaging as the students might find it, really happens with the teachers afterwards. And so this really highlights the actions of the educators when we have the opportunity to have a common assessment. So ideally, after the end of a common assessment, we now have 360 pieces of student work. And so what teachers are enabled to do is do something that we call range finding. And so each teacher might choose, say, 3 assignments of the body of work that they delivered. So they might choose what they would consider to be an exemplary example, a proficient example, and then one that might be struggling a little bit to meet standards. They would then remove the names from those, and then they would share it with a collective group of teachers, and then all of those teachers would grade all of those, looking for ultimately examples that could be shared with the students. We don't give examples of poor writing to students, we only give examples of solid ones, and those serve for future classes that would be engaged in this particular assignment. And then there's also the usefulness to teachers as well, and this is so meaningful right now, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic and we have some gaps along the way, to determine where are we really focusing our efforts, where are our needs. And so it's really beneficial as a group of teachers to do that together so that you're not alone figuring that out. And often there are a lot of commonalities across a grade level. And then obviously lessons to meet those gaps and fill those gaps can be designed across the board, supported by all the teachers at a particular grade level. And then obviously we can identify both strengths and weaknesses of that particular grade level, and that informs future instruction that happens. And then ultimately, sometimes that actually leads to adjustments in the assignment itself. If we realize that, you know what we were asking students to do, they did exactly that, but the way we asked it was not yielding the result we wanted. And so it's empowering to collectively realize, you know what, we could have worded this better and we will get the result that we're looking for. It might also involve changing the rubric. So this particular assignment is able to assess 9 different rubrics. So 9 different standards. So there's 42 standards in English, and this one gets at 9 of them. So really focusing on which of those 9 are the priority standards for that assignment, and then how do we really distinguish amongst all of those? Because it's a great assessment if it can really assess individually 9 different standards. And then, again, back to the instruction. How does what we learned from doing this range finding affect what we're going to do next? And I'm happy to answer questions about a common assessment, because that would really happen at any grade level.
Did I hear you say you had a question?
No, I just said yay.
Oh.
I love the ability to kind of calibrate teachers to be able to change the assessment, understand that it wasn't really a valid question. It's fantastic. So great work.
So I'm a big fan also, and what I really like about the idea of the student exemplars and finding the common understandings is that we're also building common standards across our grade levels, so that it's not viewed as this class is necessarily a better class to be in than that class. Mm-hmm. And we're all working towards the same goals. We're all working towards the same standards, and here's the way we're getting at that. I really like that. This sounds like it takes a lot of common planning time and a lot of time to be able to work together, which I'm also not opposed to. I mean, I think that we talked earlier in the last 2 presentations about the importance of kids having the opportunity to talk to each other and learn from each other and teach each other. And I think this is just a beautiful example of teachers being able to do the same thing, because we don't grow out of having strengths and weaknesses that are different than each other just because we're 30, 40, or 50. So I really enjoy this on so many levels, both for the kids learning and the adult learning as well.
I would agree with that, and I think that speaks to the benefit of having professional development during the school year as well as collaborative time during the school day. Because it's one thing to make great plans in August and say, here's what we're going to do, but if we never have the opportunity to then reflect on that and to look at student work, then it doesn't go any further. And so this is an opportunity to take advantage of that, because it is time consuming and it is deeply reflective work to engage in. So thank you for appreciating that.
I'll just comment that I really appreciated. You really illustrated how the assessments are utilized. And it was very, very interesting for me as a newer member of the committee, to really understand that. And it was great. I thought it was very clear, and you took us right through it all. And I thought it was very interesting. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree. I like to understand. I liked how you explained a bit about the process and what the students are going through, and then what happens afterwards. So that was very enlightening for me too. Thank you.
Welcome.
That's probably why you're a director.
Do we ever look at student exemplars from other districts as well? On similar tasks, like through MCIA work or anything like that?
That's a great question. The state has a few exemplars that we have looked at. We haven't used those extensively. And the MCIA, the potential is there. Okay. Yes, and they do have a storage area for PBAs in particular. The opportunity exists.
Really interesting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
While they're swapping up, I just want to say your questions are so helpful and insightful and sharing. And I think the magic of this is, and I can't say it enough, that these people are all teachers and the people that facilitate all this work. It is an unbelievable amount of work behind the scenes, and I can't tell you the millions of hours they give, so thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Levatino, Director for K-12 Art. Just coming off of this year's Town Day exhibition, so this is really timely. My images and footage, I don't know if the videos could be saved for later or, but I mean, there's really not much to this here. I can kind of play this. Hopefully I can get back out of it, but gives you a little bit of an understanding of kind of the nothing. Yeah, there we go. The scope and sequence from a distance of the whole program. So I'm kind of starting with the whole shebang, and then I have a few specific examples. One of the things we were talking about just today was that this kind of massive PBA at the end of our year, every year. This is an annual event that's been going on for over 2 decades. Really is a way for us to, as educators, look at vertical alignment. And so it's right there before us. So when we all join together as educators, this is a way for us to see how our students are understanding what it is we're trying to teach them, how they are processing this, how they are taking ownership of what it is we're asking them to do, how they're solving problems, and then also how we're presenting those problems to them across the board. So it's a way for the educators to also then reflect and respond, and that then informs PD and things like that for the rest of the following year. We have over 500 students at times exhibited in this one show. So it really is just a massive effort trying to kind of culminate what the curriculum really tries to express over the course of a school year. And so one of the, just to back up a little bit, one of our main goals, our departmental goals for the year, was to reconnect with the community. And for us, you know, those major assessments for us to really understand how we're doing as a department, how our students are doing as young artists, and for students to really see that major importance of art in the community and how that builds culture and how they're directly connected to that. these things are so important. So we haven't done this in 2 years, and it was quite an emotional day. We had hundreds of visitors, and I think one of the best comments that I was hearing repeatedly from visitors was how amazed they were at the work, which is always great to hear, but also how impressed they were to see K through 12, to see the development of the work over those 12 years, right? 13. And so that meant a lot, that final culmination of this artistic education really was visible. So let's see if I can move. I don't think I can. I think I messed up the thing. We'll do it this way. So kind of looking a little bit at K through 5, something that could perhaps be referred to as a common assessment, and really kind of highlighting the emphasis on process, would be the use of sketchbooks. And so all the teachers at the elementary level do use sketchbooks. Some start them at 3rd grade and then continue on until 5th. Some start them at kindergarten, and have students create them, and then refer to those. So this is a way to process, this is a way to reflect, to respond, to understand these artistic behaviors that we're trying to get kids into practice with. So at the end of their 5 years, right, they have this wonderful document that's really kind of charted their process. It's a way for us to kind of get kids kind of engaging with the hand, with the mind, with the heart, and not necessarily worrying about the final product, right? So we want to kind of get this to be a practice rather than kind of, something that is finite and just ends when the project is over. These are some specific examples of some Lincoln School sketchbooks. And they are wonderful little things filled with all kinds of artistic journeys. So just another example of a specific assessment. At McCall, the 3 teachers there are really excellent at, as they kind of ask students to respond and reflect on their process, on their products, they incorporate writing oftentimes. And so this could be a self-assessment, it could be some kind of critique, where students are asked to respond to their work or the work of others based on objectives of lessons and units. Or it could be something to kind of augment and bring another aspect to the work that can be shared. And so I think that all of our teachers are phenomenal at designing problems that really open up a lot of choice. So that could be choice in materials, it could be choice in subject matter, it could also be choice in process. And this happens again at K through 12. So in this particular lesson, right, rooted in our history, using historical, familiar, sometimes unfamiliar artists to get kids kind of thinking about putting their artworks in context, but then also, leaving that choice up to the student. How will they solve for X, right? And again, this could be, horns, fur, no horns, scales, tails, claws, whatever. And then that kind of emphasis on sustaining that focus, right? So we're trying to get kids to really kind of dig in and elaborate on those ideas. The first idea might not always be the best idea, and the only way to discover that is through process. So taking that idea maybe through a variety of media, and then of course culminating in that written work here, where you're bringing that other aspect of life to the artwork. And like I said, one of our major goals, so our 3 goals were to reconnect with the curriculum, because it was not what it used to be due to the pandemic, and so that was a lot of fun. And then connect with our kids, reconnecting with the kids. So seeing their legs was awesome. That was really nice. And then also interacting in other ways, because it really is a studio environment that we're all trying to foster in each of our rooms. But then also, again, reconnecting with the community. And so Town Day is probably my primary example, but backing up, the Senior Honors Art Show was for the first time public, where we could invite people in to be a part of that. We do a few other shows at the high school, and if no one is busy on, and here's my little shameless plug, but June 12th in the afternoon, if you are free, from 3 to 5, the opening of Photosynthesis, which is in its 16th year. Our honors photography exhibit will be hanging in the Griffin Museum, which is really exciting. And they partner with Burlington High School as well. So yet another way for students to kind of engage in that type of editing, reflecting, making those decisions about the curatorial components of art making.
Sorry, what time was that on the 12th?
I believe it's 3 to 5.
Thank you.
I will send a confirmation for that for sure. It's a great show. It really, it's always a great fun time. And I'll end with kind of what we hope all of the students in Winchester end with, right? We know that not everybody can continue in the arts. They have other interests, so many, but like Mr. Ulisny here. I thought he was here to help me, but he's not. I was so excited. And again, these images are not current. I didn't have a chance to update this, but for the last few years, this is the path that I've been leading the Senior Honors Art students in. And so this is a course that students can opt to take for 1 or 2 periods at the high school. And we work together, but we work together helping each other, the students, kind of choose their own path. So they each create a plan for an independent body of work that they will do research for. They will become very familiar with the materials that they choose to use, the artists who have come before them who might have had similar ideas or methods. And so they'll go ahead and, starting really October, November, I just needed that. They'll go ahead and start to design. I'm making you help me. But they'll go through a series of assignments, I guess you would refer to them as assignments, but just kind of ways that I'm hoping to get them to dig, discover, learn, and kind of own, right? Take ownership of those practices, those processes. I have found technology to be pretty useful for that. When we weren't able to show publicly and kind of share things, I had the students actually talk about their body of work, and so they read or spoke their artist statements. And so every student has to come up with an artist statement that helps synthesize what it is that they've done to go alongside the work. I'll leave that for now. And no, I won't. I will. I will go through this one just because I have images to share with us as well. And so this is one student just kind of documenting her path. And again, keep in mind this starts in late October, early November. So it's months really that they're dedicating to this, culminating in a final thesis exhibit. That is loosely based around a very silly title that has nothing to do with the art that is being viewed. And so that shebang is this year's show title. And so we were really excited to have that reception and bring the public in to a gallery that the students create themselves. And so everything at that point is designed by them and for them. So we can celebrate them and everything that they've learned since kindergarten. I believe that is my final slide, so if anyone has any questions.
Thank you.
Just encourage everyone next year, if you don't get an if you get an opportunity to go to the Senior Honors Art, because the extraordinary breadth of art that the students create, from fiber arts to sculpture to print and digital, it's just
Architecture.
architecture. It's an extraordinary range of art that exists at the Senior Honors Art, and just so impressive that the kids have gone through the whole process themselves.
And
So,
I thank you for kind of highlighting it. I think that's really where you see that culmination of all of those years of having those opportunities to problem solve somewhat independently with that scaffolding. So when the choice is introduced at such a young age, I think these students get really used to, we hope, making those decisions and feeling confident about them. And that was definitely evident, I think, in this year's group, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank
real
you very
treat
much.
to, or it's been a real treat to go like down the hallway of the art corridor to see the works on either side of that hallway, or that were displayed around the high school. I think this was probably back around Springtown meeting, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, for another event. But then to see some of them appear again at the Town Day exhibit, just as you were describing, the breadth of work from kindergarten through 12th grade, and really for me, as you were saying, seeing the development of students over the years, some kids whom I've known since kindergarten, or even before, and then just seeing students whom I've just encountered over the years, or more recently, I mean, in 12th grade, and just the work that they produce. It's just phenomenal. So,
That's
thank you. Wow.
Glad to hear that. That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
And I had to look it up. It's Sunday 4 to 6.
4 to 6. Thank you for doing that. Never trust me.
Now we have Mr. Roan.
it was the right range.
Come on.
It's gonna be a hard one. Almost didn't do it.
It's like a metaphor with ours.
I want to, I'm Anna Tironi, I'm the Director of World Languages, and thank you very much for having me here tonight. I'd like to start off with this first slide to explain the journey of learning a language, because I think that we learn languages today much differently from how many of us in this room were taught. Because today, it's more about what kids can do with the language, as opposed to what kids know about the language. So it's not about, can they tell you all 7 definite articles in the Italian language? Or can they conjugate all the boot verbs for Spanish? It isn't about that. It's about, can they communicate their ideas? Can they understand when people talk to them, when people write to them? Can they interact with people? Can they interpret? So this is what it's about. And the first slide on the left shows this progression, this natural progression of the novice level. The novice is in blue, and they have little terms for them. Like at the novice level, the first level is the parrot. If you think about when you learned a language as naturally, or when your kids learn a language, they start off mimicking, copying words that you say. And I know myself, I had to keep my kids away from certain people because they were coming back with the wrong words.
Yourself not included.
Right. So we teach them all the good words in our classes, though. So then they go from being the parrot to the toddler. The toddler puts words together, and then they go to what they call the fighter. It's still the novice level. The fighter is, they feel a little bit more empowered, but they can get in trouble with the language. Sometimes they're not really right, but it's okay. So then that period of time in that novice level could take at least 2 years, maybe until the middle of the 3rd year, to get beyond that novice level and go into the intermediate low level, when they start creating with the language. They become creators, then they go to a higher level, and they can explain things in the language. Then they can tell opinions, so they keep going to higher levels. And the diagram on the right shows how it's a funnel. In the blue, the novice level, it doesn't take as long to fill that. It doesn't take as long to get out of that novice level. But when you go into the intermediate level, the funnel's bigger. The funnel is bigger, and it takes more time to fill that. And when you go into the advanced, it takes even longer. And this is one of the reasons that we really are happy that we have the 6th grade program. It gives more kids a chance to get to the highest level possible. We want to get them to the advanced level or intermediate high if possible. So anyways, I wanted to start off with that, and so that you understood the journey and that acquiring a language takes time and it takes practice. As opposed to, I know when I first started teaching, we were told just drill and kill. Drill, 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 memorize these verbs, but most kids weren't able to go abroad and survive on their own. But I think kids are very comfortable speaking the languages that they're learning here in Winchester. So the question, I guess, is why? Why would you have standardized assessment tests in world languages if you can just listen to the kids talk? Isn't it a beautiful thing? Well, there's, I think, at least 3 reasons why we want standardized assessments. And one is so that we can measure the growth of our kids through this system of seeing what they can do. And that's one big reason. Another reason is to look at the quality of our own program. Because when the scores come back, we can see where do we have holes? Are we doing something that we could do better? What are we good at? So that really helps us. And the students always love to have prizes. So that's one of the things that the students get, and I'm going to talk about those later. But they do, and it's funny. You think that kids, I know this week and last week they're doing MCAS, but the kids actually come to us and say, are we having the national exam this year? They actually want to know. They like it. So we'll go to the next one. I actually am not sure if I should show you this because I don't think we got permission. It's those words that they weren't supposed to learn. But no, it's because I'm not sure if we got permission from the kids and their parents. It's a PBA that they did in the 8th grade, and it's kids videotape themselves talking about their daily routine. So in the 8th grade, they're still at the novice level in the beginning of the year. So everything is talking about themselves. And the way that we got them to learn about reflexive verbs was to tell us about their daily routine. I wake up, I have breakfast, I take a shower. So these were 2 samples. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to show them or not. Because I don't think I have permission to show them.
In an abundance of caution, we'll move to the next slide.
Don't get us all in trouble, you know.
Those words.
Why is that not moving now? There we go. So this is another PBA. So we do, before we get to the standardized test that I'm going to talk about later, our kids are already used to doing formative assessments and summative assessments, PBAs, that all have to do with using the target language in different situations. This PBA is a job search interview. This is older kids. They're probably juniors. They're now into the intermediate proficiency level, and everything is in the target language except for the directions. And in this PBA, they're supposed to look at job ads, and they're supposed to respond to them in the target language in writing. They're supposed to read the ad and respond, get the interview, and then do a speaking interview with their teacher. And there's a rubric. We're using the 1-point rubric. And the kids seem to really understand that, and they get quick feedback on it too, as how to improve. So that's one that we've used, just to show you an example of a high-level PBA. And this is another example. It's called the Netflix Challenge, and there's 2 parts to this challenge. The first part is that there's a contest. I told you, they love prizes. So there's this contest, and they have to come up with a story that Netflix is going to buy. And they have to write the story in the target language, and then they get this interview with Netflix, and they have to sell the story to Netflix. And it's all in the target language, and they get to read each other's stories too. That was very fun, watching them enjoy each other's stories. And right here I have the names of the standardized tests that we use. A standardized test that we use from grade 6 to 12 is called the National Language Exam. So these exams are sponsored by the teachers' language organizations. The only one that doesn't have one yet is Mandarin. We're hoping that they will come out with something. And this test, though, so the second one is the Advanced Placement Test. You all know that. It's kind of controlled by the College Board. And teachers become certified to teach an AP course, and then they follow the AP curriculum, and the kids take the AP exam. And they pay, I think, $95 or something. That's an exam that's given to kids that take the AP course. And then we have the Seal of Biliteracy test. We offer that test to any 12th grader or 11th grader in any language if we can find it. So I told you about the national exams. It's really interpretive, listening, and reading. So there's only 2 components of the national exam. And it's a good way to start the kids taking these, because they're only worried about 2 components. In the Latin, it's reading. It's interpretive reading, and there's a vocabulary component. But the other languages are interpretive reading and listening. And the Seal of Biliteracy, this is a state award that the kids will get. For Latin, it's interpretive reading again. But for the other language, it's all the skills, all the 3 modes of communication. And for the Seal, the kids have to reach the intermediate high level. And for the Seal with distinction, if they reach the advanced low, they will receive the Seal of Distinction. It goes on their diploma and their transcript that they've gotten this. And a real big bonus now is that they receive a letter from the DESE. And if they want to become teachers, they can take the teacher's test for free. That's the big bonus we're getting now. Because we want good teachers, and we have them right here in Winchester. We want to send them this way to the colleges so they can
Turning
get...
into a big recruitment right now.
I was just going to say.
Took a turn I did not expect, really.
Seriously.
I know.
We need good teachers.
Absolutely.
So there's a number of tests that we use for this, but it's all based on what we've been working with the kids all along to get them to use the target language, to solve problems, to express yourself, to give opinions, to ask questions. And the most common one is the apple and the stamp. The other 2 that I have up here, therefore, Alera is for Latin, and the other 2 are for languages that are not that common. So this year, in addition to the languages that we teach, we also tested for Urdu and Mandarin. We don't have Mandarin at the high school, but kids still took that test a couple of years. Oh, we had Finnish a couple of years ago. We had Korean. So there are a lot of languages, and this we just want to show that every language is valuable, and it's a skill that you'll take with you for the rest of your life. It's a very valuable skill to speak another language. And the College Board, we know about that one. And that's the end of my slideshow. I'm going to start selling products here in a minute.
We filled the business manager, special ed director, teachers.
All right.
Thank you.
I have to say, I'm very excited to see that you're doing the national language exams. I was in my attic last summer, and I found my silver medal from the Latin one. So
Bravo.
They're very exciting.
Isn't it?
The kids like it. I
They
mean,
do. They ask us, are we having the, because the 1 year with COVID, we didn't have it, and the next year, the first thing the kids said is, are we having the national exams this year?
Every year it was a big deal, I remember.
And we have a ceremony. We haven't had the ceremony for a couple of years now, but we're going to get back to it.
I'm also excited that the exchange student program has returned, because there's no greater PBA for your French student than have to talk and speak in French with
Yes.
students and say, wow, they speak French really well because they grew up that way.
Right.
And try to listen to them play ping pong with each other and eat lunch together.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so,
We're so happy that we have that back, and we're on a roll now.
yeah, that was very exciting. So I'm glad to see that return.
Any questions?
No, but I'm gonna come over and help you get out of that. Okay.
I'm gonna walk around. I'm gonna walk
Those are
around.
good teachers we have. You wanna go this way? Even
I'm gonna walk
Even
around.
better.
Please walk around. Do a victory lap.
Feel so undignified here.
No. This is
No,
ladies and
no,
gentlemen.
it's just.
Undignified is that we set up a bunch of wires for you to jump over in 2022.
Yeah, $60 million budget. This is how we're doing it.
All right. Any final questions or?
Just thank you to
Yes.
everyone who
Thank you.
presented today and who took the time to come in and share their student work and their processes. It really helps us to get a good picture of what's actually going on in the classrooms and with the staff. So, and how much time and care and appreciation you have for the work that you do too. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
you,
It
everybody.
really just shines clearly through everything that you've said and talked about today. And it was, yes, thank you.
And you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Have a good night.
All right. Bon voyage. Thank you. Kind of the opposite of what I said, but
You have that effect on people.
I do, don't I? I really do. At home, it's the same thing, really.
I understand.
But I guess.
Been there.
So we might have some members in our audience who are coming for action items later on this evening with track and field booster.
Would you like to move them up?
Yes? Okay, yes. So with consensus from the committee, I would be happy to move that forward so that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So please feel free to join us at the table, and we will just move to consideration of approval of a donation of a shed by the, please be careful of that, Winchester High School Track and Field Boosters for $16,256.50.
Can I use the docking station to put something up on the screen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please do.
Can't guarantee.
At your own peril.
Yeah,
I was
right.
just gonna say,
can't-
yes.
If you can operate it, you have to come to
Right.
every other meeting to help us operate it.
I do feel like track and field people should be able to navigate the wires. but-
And high jump that.
We have a pretty good high hurdler in town, so. Well, thank you
Make
for
this
having
work,
us.
you just might have a job.
Okay,
Fingers
please
crossed
come in the
again.
next meeting.
So far, no one got electrocuted, so that's good.
Well, that's
We're off
that
to
was
a good start.
I think you got it.
Maybe. Cross
This
it.
is the tricky part. This is where I
This
get,
is the
this is where I
PBA.
get stuck.
This is the
every
PBA.
time.
Now he's gonna do it. He's a track guy.
All right.
Track people always find a way.
I don't know, it's not connecting.
You got it.
Seamus is gonna will it to happen.
And sign into that one, because we know that one works.
I also brought this just in case.
Perfect.
See?
How you do it right there.
Thank you.
He's ready.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
We can share.
Thank you.
So there's enough.
I have one for everybody.
I'm so prepared. I'll take my.
Somewhat.
Thank you very much.
I apologize for not being in a 3-ring binder. I went to the lacrosse tournament game and the volleyball game after practice today.
That was the first thing I was going to point out, but go ahead.
It did come in red folders though.
Yes. Well, thank you for having us. My name is Jason Kachpudi. I'm a physical education health teacher and head indoor and outdoor track coach at Winchester High School. And I'm here to again talk to a little about what we're trying to do with storage down at the field. But before we begin, I asked some people to come with me tonight that can also help elaborate a little bit about what we're trying to do. So,
I'm Bo Shinley. I'm a senior or graduated captain for the indoor and outdoor track.
Paul Manganaro, good seeing most of you folks from last night and tonight. We see each other anymore, we'll be dating, I think, but glad to come here and support this cause because, I think it was 13 years ago I was the president of the Winchester Field Development Council, where it was a joint public and private venture that raised over $3 million for the upgrades of the facility down there, the multi-purpose synthetic surface and the track and field. And believe it or not, about 150 pounds ago, I used to run track and through the shot in high school. So I see the great job a coach is doing with these kids, and I think it's probably the highest enrollment of any sports program we have. But more importantly, recently there's talk from the select board about replacing the turf down there and giving it the much needed upgrades, and I think this is the perfect time to get rid of what we have there that looks like a construction site and upgrade. Thank you.
How many feet did you throw the shot?
53.
Is the record board, wait, hold on. If the record board's not up there, it was 75 feet. 53 feet.
Very impressive.
And then I'm Luke Ulisny. I'm a graduated senior, and I was the throws captain for indoor and outdoor.
He was chasing Coach Manganaro's record.
Didn't quite get there.
So on the first page, you can see what we have currently down there is a storage container on the outside of the fencing of the track. On the second slide, just highlighting it only has one entrance. And the problem with one entrance on a long container is you have to store everything back, and it makes things unsafe and inefficient on top of the fact that we have to unlock that and unlock the gate to walk everything in. The next picture shows you how we try to be organized, and so we can move things in and out as best we can. And if you continue on to the next one, this is kind of that organization from the front picture. This is what it really looks like. And then again on the next picture, we have 80 plus hurdles that have to move to get the high jump mats out. And sometimes we store the high jump mats in the front because the majority of the athletes will have left on their training, and the hurdles get pushed back. And then the next day, it's pull the high jump mats out to pull all the hurdles out. So it's very inefficient. It does take a significant amount of time at the beginning and the end of our practice. And at the same time, there are things hanging from the walls, not super secure, and we want it to be a situation where our athletes can access what they need in an efficient and safe manner. And both Boshin and Luke at some point can talk a little bit about what they've gone through the last several years having to deal with this. The next picture, I want to make sure I give credit. Max McKay, a graduated senior, who also did a lot of the work on the the WHS Royals, helped me with this. I gave him kind of what the mock-up of the shed would look like, and then he did the rest. So this would be the front of the shed. It would abut the track. We would remove the fence. We would have a nice wide door. With a little bit of more fundraising, we'd get a record board for both teams on either side of the door to be able to highlight our athletes' accomplishments. The next talks just a little bit about what each side of the shed would look like, really highlighting our pride in our school colors. And then the overhead view, Max did a great job of taking a drone shot and then plugging in what it would kind of look like once it's all put together. Nice, neat setup. The fencing towards the gate is still there, and the gate, because that is an emergency access. We'd be down the other end. We'd have a ramp already built in place. It wouldn't impact the track. And then in my next slide, I believe, what the inside would look like versus what we had in the container. We'd have the hurdle carts to one side, our block carts, our throwing implements, our high jump mats, our strength and power development equipment, all accessible without having to move anything else out of the way, and in a safe way that our athletes can access it and not have to worry about tripping over, climbing over, falling over, and also being able to move things in and out in an efficient manner. And the last piece is installation. We already have support from the DPW on the help with this. They would level the area for us, put down the 3 to 6 inches of 3/4 inch crushed stone that we need in the dimensions that we need, and then Reed's Ferry would come in. They assemble everything at the factory, or I shouldn't say what, they build it at the factory, and then they come on site and they assemble. There'd be a little bit of coordination in terms of that, but it's a pretty, efficient and simple process. That's what we're looking to do. I think it'll bring a lot of pride to our community, having a nice, clean-looking shed. Aesthetically, going to be much nicer. Small piece, but financially, it'll help Mr. Aria's budget because he's paying monthly for that shed for however many years it's been down there now. And then, again, our athletes are going to go down there and be able to access what they need efficiently, so we can be even more efficient with their time, so that they can get what they need and also be able to leave and be able to head home and do what they need to do there. So,
I'd be happy to make a motion as a former track and field athlete to approve the donation of a shed by the WHS Track and Field Boosters for $16,256.50, and thank you very much. I think I'm very biased. I'm wearing a Williams College cross country shirt, but track and field is near and dear to my heart. It's a extremely inclusive sport, and I just appreciate your program. I've been lucky to be on my own run, and I've stopped at a few track meets, and I've been impressed with the team and the athletes I've met. And I just thank you all for your dedication and everything you're doing for the program. And I'm just excited to continue to see, having this in place of the storage container will just make the track look, as it should. It's a nice looking track, and this will really make it look the way it should. So
thank you.
I appreciate you all for having this happen.
Thank you.
I would second this, and 2 comments. Well, I never ran track, unless someone's chasing me. I will say my 7-year-old is doing it, and so I'm very appreciative of that. And I'm curious whether this could be our new central office.
I'm
in.
I think that's where Chris is right now, scouting a few out.
But no, this looks wonderful. You answered my question.
He's only partially joking. That's
No, if it's this.
It's the best option we have currently.
You just drop it off. Right there.
Just get another shed. 16,000. That's not bad.
There we go.
I mean, reading in advance, my only questions were what it looked like and where it was, and you answered those really well here. So this looks great. I appreciate it.
You brought the students with you. Did they want to say anything? I just didn't want to miss out on them if there was anything they wanted to add before we.
I usually tend to stay a little bit later after my personal practice is over, just to help out, put everything back, because with the way that the crate is set up, the long horizontal things, the high jump mats have to be stacked on each other horizontally, and they're quite heavy, and I've seen some really interesting form of kids trying to throw them on top of another where they get pancaked between the 2 mats, and then they got to get pulled out. There's also just a bunch of dumbbells in there, and having to move the kites up, it's not quite safe for some of the, especially if there's some freshmen who don't really understand how lifting heavy things work.
So another important question: what was your best event and what was your PR?
I ran the 400 pretty okay.
Yep.
Ran a 57.
Nice, excellent. All right.
And then also with Shotput and Discus, it's not the easiest moving heavy implements even when there's nothing in your way, but also trying to climb over things, it makes it a little bit hard.
You a discus or a shot guy?
I started out as a shot guy, and then I became a discus guy for the past 2 years in the outdoor.
You got smarter. I like it.
I'm going to brag a little bit as a coach. He qualified in both events for the Division II state championships, and then in the discus, he placed 8th. Was that? Am I correct on that? 6th. Sorry.
Congratulations.
We had a lot of we had a very, very good year. Our athletes were tremendous this year, and we placed very, very high in a lot of events. And
Did 6 get you onto the state meet?
Did not, unfortunately.
What? 6 used to get you to the state meet. What are they doing nowadays?
I guess now it's top 3.
Oh, ridiculous. You should have been.
It's all big money now.
Yeah.
Or the MIAA or something.
And just express gratitude to the track and field boosters. This is another, like, the Sports Foundation and the boosters for these organizations. It's a tremendous amount of support for us as a district and for the athletics department. So just want to make sure we express our gratitude to them for raising this money and being able to make this improvement. It sounds like it's going to make a real difference for the athletes on the field and being able to coach more efficiently too.
I appreciate that. And to me, the observation I make is, like I said, it's one of the most diverse group of student athletes that we have down there. You can have the 2-miler to the shot putter, and kids of all different talent. And it's a team score. It's not a team sport in my perspective, because individual best, you can compete against yourself and strive for your own limits. So it's important. I remember when we did the Manchester field renovation in 2 segments, 2 phases, and the first one was the multi-purpose synthetic. And everybody said, "Oh, they'll never get the track done. They don't care. They only care about the field." But little do they know that was our main motivation, was that track. Because my mother's 85 years old. She walks around the track, and you know, there's that TOPS program in town for disabled kids that really can't perform on natural grass because it's so uneven, or if it gets a little wet. So those synthetic surfaces were very important, as is the track. And I think I'd like to commend these 2 gentlemen. I mean, they graduated. They didn't need to be here tonight.
Yeah.
And for them to come back, you can see how much the program and coach meant to them. So look forward to it. I just had a question for formality. We came to you folks first, but I know that field is a little tricky. We're planning on going to the select board, but if you approve this tonight, do we still need to go to the select board to get their approval?
Technically, yeah, because it's our field, but they take care of it through DPW. So
That's what we thought, because then doing the donation too, and we're hoping to do it in kind to save a little bit of money.
It's also good for them to hear it too.
Yes.
Right. Have you met with the Disability Access Commission at all? I don't think there would be anything involved with this, but it might not be a bad idea to reach out.
That's a good point.
Just to make sure. But
Yes, I was wondering about that, just to make sure, on the Disability Access Commission. And having, did you have anything?
No.
Yes, having been to quite a few of the home track meets in the last couple of years, I have a much greater appreciation now after seeing your slides, because I guess I never appreciated how the hurdles were stored and how much effort had to be made to get them out of storage, along with all the padding in the back of the trailer. So
it's kind of ridiculous.
Yes, I had no idea.
It's been tricky.
This is great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, this is a great upgrade.
So I believe we had a second. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for
everyone.
sticking through this too. You picked it. It was a meeting where we did a lot of stuff, so we appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Coming back.
Keep running, keep throwing. I just became a master. I'm still doing it. You get old, it gets easy. There's not many competitors left. The secret.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you
Thank
too.
you. And we will carry on. So, returning to our schedule, we were going to start with the proposed school committee meeting dates for September 22 through June 23. And you had received a draft of the calendar at the last meeting, and we will take this up for some more discussion tonight, along with a vote eventually actually, I think we can go straight there after this, on the summer meetings. So Ms. Allen, the administrative assistant, had drafted the calendar in alignment with the 2021-22 calendar. So the meetings are generally scheduled for the second and fourth weeks of the month and are at 6 p.m. So some of the things that we had touched on or thought about in our last meeting were perhaps taking up morning meetings during the summer, remote meetings. An extension of remote meeting capability has passed in the Massachusetts Senate, It does have to go through to the House for an extension. The proposed extension is through December 15th of 2023.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, that'd be good.
And I guess we have also talked about having a plan to offer remote meetings in the summer for our July and August meetings. So school committee and administration can participate remotely as needed. So I would just open up the discussion. So those were some of the topics that we had touched on.
So, Ms. Bolognese, are we taking report discussion item A and action item A simultaneously?
If we would like to do that, we can go ahead and do that. I just figured that after we got through our discussion,
Yeah.
the very next item
Okay.
is going to be that vote.
Yeah.
So
It's just where we
It's
jumped
naturally going to
around, so I was
segue.
just trying to.
Yes, that's
Um,
getting us into track.
So the only thing that I did notice that we are missing on our regularly scheduled meeting dates is we usually include in January the public hearing on the budget, because it doesn't typically happen on our second and fourth Tuesday.
Yep.
But we do usually put it on our regular schedule so that date is held and
Yes.
publicly known.
I think last year when we had talked about that as well, and I think as a school committee we sort of looked at it. We pulled out our
Yep.
schedulers in the meeting and sort of plucked a date out of January and held that date.
Yes.
And I would also, on the subject of public hearings, I'm wondering, and maybe we don't need it at this particular point, but since we do have a school choice public hearing that has to happen before June 1st, then maybe we put that
Yep.
on the calendar
Be a
as
good
well,
idea.
so that we know when we have to post
Some
30
years
days
we
in
have
advance.
done that on the second May meeting, at the
Yep.
beginning of the meeting.
We have.
Instead of as a separate meeting too. So we may just want to indicate on our calendar if we do that.
And I would add, given the challenge of scheduling our retreat, we might want to consider putting a retreat on the calendar for
Oh, that's
next
not a bad
spring,
idea.
and then it'll be there.
That's a good
I believe, just talking with some members about the retreat, I think the retreat is something people are excited for, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be only once a year. So maybe if there's something in the spring, and then there's something in the end of the summer or fall, that wouldn't be the end of the world, I don't think.
So it looks like
Um,
that last Monday in January is the 30th. Or last Tuesday is the 31st. If we want to keep it to a Tuesday. For the budget.
The 31st of
January.
Because we have to vote on it before that
By then.
February date.
Typically, that's when we've done it.
Yeah,
To give
because
the
budget
town
book
manager
is
enough
usually
time.
February 12th or
Yeah.
whatever, 13th, it varies each year, but it's early February.
I think the first my first 2 years on school committee, it was like that 24th.
Yep.
The
they can-
24th.
yeah,
So, and
That's
then
our
this year-
regular meeting?
It can be anywhere in there.
And this year, I think we had put it in at the end of the month.
Right,
January
because
31st.
the 24th would be our second and fourth would be our regular meeting, and usually the budget hearing is pulled out as a separate meeting.
Yeah.
My only other observation I'll make, I think I made it last time, but I have a little more data. I looked at other school committees, and a lot of school committees meet at 6:30 or 7. I would just put that out there as something I would prefer. I understand we all have to find a time that works, but I looked at Sudbury, Belmont, Lexington, Weston, Arlington, and everyone meets at 6:30 or 7. So in that group, we're the only one that meets at 6.
Is there just the rationale for it? I mean, I know what other people are doing.
I
but-
mean, just personally, as someone who works all day and then has to go pick up 2 children.
Okay.
Like, my wife got my kids from the Parker's parking lot today. That's about how much time I had, because I had to go and buy Pam a present, because I found out today it was Pam's
Yep.
last meeting.
Yep.
So, just,
Yep.
it means a lot to me, that half hour. I don't know what it means to other people, but it just makes things a lot easier when you're working all day and then you're trying to get your kids and then you're trying to come to the meeting. But again, that's just my preference. Obviously, the 6 o'clock is doable, but
I would just add that, and I imagine we'll talk about this at the workshop as we get to that point, that having a firm end time would be, because I think the reason some people don't like to push it later is because it doesn't really have a firm end time, and it can get pretty late. I note also some of these summer meetings, which I'm generally free for. But, the 9:31 on August 9th, I have a 1 o'clock meeting in Bedford, so I need to wrap up by 12:30, which I kind of think is reasonable, but I don't know if it's a 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour, or 5-hour meeting. And so just something to think about if we could.
Tom, you said you have something else August 9th?
Not until I have a 1 o'clock meeting.
Oh,
so
well, I'm just wondering if you have the 9th. I mean, if it's going to be virtual, could we move it to...
No, I'm fine.
We have flexibility when we can do it, right?
Yeah, it's up to you, but I'm just saying if that's an important thing, I'd rather have you not feel rushed to get to it, and then because in the summer it doesn't make a big difference. I don't think.
My view is that there's diminishing returns after 3 hours in a meeting,
Oh,
and that we ought to
absolutely.
be able to end within 3 hours, I guess, is where I was going. But I appreciate the offer to move it. But I was trying to also support your request for starting at 6:30. I don't think starting at 6:30 is as unreasonable if we ended by 9:30. But it is more unreasonable if it's going to go till 10:30 or 11.
Right. So my experience the first couple years I was on school committee when we started at 7 was that it was extremely hard to go past after 9, especially for the staff that had been working all day and actually doesn't live in Winchester and then had to make a commute home, or when any of our teachers needed to stay who also don't live in Winchester and then they had to go home after presenting. So I understand the challenge, and it's a challenge for me just personally after 9 p.m. also to stay focused after working all day and being with my kids and getting my kids places. So I think we had moved it a bit earlier for those reasons, because sometimes our meetings do go 3 hours, and when we start at 7 and finish at 10, it's just nobody is really very focused between 9 and 10.
I think it's been mentioned before, because I know I've mentioned it, and I've heard Mr. Nixon mention it, though he's not here. I mean, I would certainly be interested in, to Tom's point, potentially having more meetings on Tuesdays, but being very firm that they go from like even 6:30 to 8, and like that's our meeting, and we have to design our agenda so it fits within that time, and then everybody knows they're done by 8, and yeah, maybe we have to come a bunch of Tuesdays, but for the most part we have Tuesdays set aside. I don't know, that's just another thought. I feel the same way, like on the 3rd hour,
Yeah.
not giving the same energy. Even on the 2nd hour, I'm not necessarily giving the same energy that I am, in the 1st hour of the meeting. It's hard to sustain that.
I like the spirit of that. In practice, my 2 cents on it is that there's a sort of transaction cost of driving here and driving back that spending a reasonable chunk of time, so that, because you're going to spend the time coming and going. Also, I think there's going to be cases, history has shown, where we need to add meetings. And so having the ability to slot them into those empty slots is helpful.
Mhm.
But I do think we can be tighter with the agenda, and maybe things when you get to, if you do 6 to 9 or whatever time we end up landing on, if we haven't finished the agenda, we bump it to the next meeting, or somehow, we have to crush it in, or I don't know. I don't want to be, so firm, we could go to 9:15 or something, but we really need to have discipline and hold each other accountable to
I think one thing that's come up as well is with scheduling executive sessions, and then possibly considering holding our Tuesday evenings each week, just in case an executive session has to come up. But I'm not sure quite how I feel about scheduling a regular meeting, even if it's shorter, every single week. So, but I do see the benefit of like saving that time and energy of trying to schedule meetings by just saying, okay, you hold that time, and then if we need it, we'll put the executive session on that date. Then we don't have to go search, unless it's something
Bring
particularly
that
pressing.
from Finance
Yeah.
Committee, you're meeting every week. Select Board, they meet every week, and the meetings are shorter. And
Select Board does not always meet every week.
No, I know, but
They're
like
just
when-
recently.
when they need to, they do it. And
Right.
Finance Committee has
Right.
always done that, and then they don't,
Right.
you know, there are times
Meet
when
for
they
months
don't
at a
meet.
time.
Like, maybe we basically are not meeting all of July, we're
Right.
meeting at the very end of July, which I appreciate.
No, I think the idea of holding every Tuesday as a meeting time, but scheduling regular meetings every other Tuesday. My fear of scheduling a regular meeting every Tuesday is we'll fill the time whether it's really necessary. We may feel obligated to build an agenda
Oh, gosh.
every Tuesday. Yeah.
I would hope, I would not. I would
I
hope
know,
not.
but it can happen that.
There's human nature there.
Especially if you have posted meetings. The human nature is to schedule a meeting. So I think if we in our head as a committee could come to consensus and agree to just reserve every Tuesday
Yes.
evening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then to Ms. Bolognese's point, where we, so when we go to schedule, we don't have to throw out, a doodle poll with 20 dates and times on it. We know that Tuesday's our day
Right.
that we automatically go to.
And that
I
makes
think I
a-
could definitely be on board with that.
And then we
That
know
makes a
we
ton of
can-
sense.
We can do executive
Yep.
sessions virtually, which I think is a good.
Right, right.
thing,
Until
too,
December.
when
Well, we could also think about
They're
separating.
gonna re-up it, they're just playing the game.
And maybe even separating out like a presentation like tonight, separately on one of those off Tuesdays, so we're not trying to mix business and being able to hear from.
Yeah,
And
so
work-
that's a
more
good
of a
point.
workshop.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good
Right.
point, because
Right.
like that presentation
Right.
could have
Just-
been a meeting.
Absolutely. And you don't have people waiting to speak and all the
Yeah,
rest of it,
guess,
so.
Yep, I don't want to throw out counterpoints to everything, but
Well, it seems like you're going to.
Well, just presumably people might want to take week-long vacations at some point during the year, so I think maybe having a soft hold on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
because-
suggesting.
Yeah, I think
because
that's what
if
we're
we know
saying.
if we know what these
Yeah.
dates are, we can plan things via vacations and personal time.
Yep.
Right.
To the extent we can.
Right.
Obviously, you can't always do that.
I think the soft hold, that's what I.
Yeah, I think
kinda
that's
meant.
what I was
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
too.
Because every once in a while, we have an executive session we didn't expect because we got to do something on the contract negotiation or whatever. So it's
Right.
nice to know that we're not scrambling around trying to figure out.
Trying to find a date or make a 3-hour meeting a 4-hour meeting, so we have to put an executive session on the end of it is never fun for anyone.
Yeah. I'm basically with you there in spirit. I wouldn't close off, if that Thursday was a good day for people or otherwise. But,
Mhm.
but I'm just leery about putting holds on calendars for things that we're mostly not using. But that's fine.
Yeah.
Since it's not anything we're voting on, we can just move forward.
I think
with
we
it.
can reasonably anticipate,
Yes.
for the most part. I think it would be, we want to plan a presentation and then we let you know, and is everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Or we have to scramble around and try to get an executive session in, which we
Right.
could do remotely too, which gives us
Mhm.
flexibility, but.
Yeah.
And we can
And with
always have,
Red.
up to one person call in anytime, right?
You just need a physical quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could have two
Okay, so you
people
could
could
have
call
two,
in.
so at all
Right,
times, two
right.
people could
Yeah.
call in if
Right.
they needed to.
Right.
Per our policy, you have to follow the policy, but.
And hopefully if they pass that extension, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully let us make
Yeah.
it permanent, because especially for executive session, it's silly because no one can come and see it.
Right,
So why does
exactly.
it matter if you're
Right.
in person or not?
Right.
With regard to the executive sessions and the frequency, I do think that there is a bit of an ebb and flow to when we have, having gone through the minutes for those, there do seem to be months where we do encounter a number of issues, it seems. And we do meet fairly regularly in executive session. And then there are times, to Mr. Hopcroft's point, where it seems to ebb a little bit and we don't have as many.
Right.
I did have two more comments. The June, I think, well, I don't have it in front of me. Let me grab it. So in June, on this proposed calendar, which again parallels this year, we only have the one meeting. But I think, Dr. Hackett, I think at some point you had said, well, it might be good to have a second meeting in June. So I don't know if that's something that we would want to consider on a more of an ongoing basis.
I mean, last year we only did one in June.
That I think
Okay.
was because there was an
There was a
unexpected
transition.
illness too.
Oh,
So.
I thought it was because of the transition.
I mean, we only,
So.
I thought we only had one scheduled in
There,
June.
there were two.
Or we only
and-
held one.
Yes, and we only held one.
But my point being,
So.
we survived with one.
Yes.
We didn't have 1,000 things that were hanging over us, but.
Yeah, and I think we just, if we're gonna soft hold on the Tuesdays, then if something
we're
comes
all
up,
set.
they can
That
do
is
it.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the other comment that I had was, I know for the summer meetings, we have July 26th and August 9th proposed, and I was just wondering, do those seem, maybe they're 2 weeks apart? I guess they are 2 weeks
They're 2
apart.
weeks
So,
apart. Yeah.
okay.
Why is
They
one
just
9
seem-
and one 9:30? That just seems odd. Can we just, let's be consistent. Either they're
Yeah.
both at 9:30.
They're
or
generally
both at 9.
9:30.
I don't care which one.
I don't
but-
think there was any reason why it was
Okay, that's
listed as
just
9 and
weird.
9:30. I
Yeah.
don't remember that
I don't
discussion.
remember why
I don't
it
even know how
would
they
be
got on
9 or
there.
9:30.
Okay, then let's
It may
do-
have been if Erin was copying last year's, those may have been the times for
yeah,
July and
right,
August.
right,
Last
right,
year,
right,
she may
right.
have just automatically copied.
Yeah,
So-
so if we could change the July 1 to 9:30.
I don't care if
so
it's 9 or
consistent,
9:30.
Just
Yeah.
9:30 would be better.
yeah,
Okay.
for everyone.
Let's see. Okay.
And the
Can we make a note for Tom that the August 9th meeting?
I have that.
Needs
Yeah.
to end by noon?
Yes.
The December meetings are intentionally back-to-back weeks, probably because of the holidays.
Probably.
Yes.
That's probably how it worked out.
Yep.
So
And
It's
we
also-
it was similar to this
We
year, I
should
think.
probably double check all those dates and make sure.
Yes.
Have they?
Yes.
Have we?
No.
Make sure they don't fall
Yep.
on any
Yep, that has not been
significant
done.
holidays.
Right.
Okay. We have
So-
some homework to do there.
But we're not voting on it tonight. We're just
Right.
discussing it. So.
Right.
So
So
I would make a motion on the action item with just adjusting the July 26th date to 9:30 and maintaining the August 9th date at 9:30 with the caveat that we end by noon absolutely on August 9th.
And remote if still allowable.
Remote
Yes,
if
remote.
allowed.
Yeah.
Sudbury already has their scheduled remote for the summer, so I think they have absolute confidence that the House will follow up on the
That's
Senate.
excellent.
As
They
do
mu-
I,
they
because
must know something.
they are pretty well aligned on things like that.
So just to recap, the July and August are meant to be by Zoom unless we
Correct.
can't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's correct.
At
That's the
9:30.
intention. So I was also going to just offer Mr. Hopcroft that on August 9th, certainly if you need to drop off a bit early
Yeah.
as well, that's always acceptable. And
Yes.
while we all do
And we
make
have
an
done
effort
that.
to make every meeting and make every whole meeting, there just are some impossibilities sometimes for any one of us, and we need to normalize that as well, too.
Yes. we
I
have-
appreciate
Yes.
that.
We have much higher attendance than town meeting.
If anything changes on the calendar after tonight, if you could like send a notice, just 'cause I know we're editing it live here,
yes.
but just I'm putting them in my calendar, so.
Right, and we're only voting for the summer meetings tonight, and so we will come back and vote the 22, fall 22-23 school committee meetings at a later date.
And I presume.
It's scheduling. I'm not sure we needed to vote it, but we can.
Yeah, why not?
It'd be
And
good to
Leave
get
it as a
official.
business
Consensus.
vote.
Mr. Nixon didn't have any conflicts with those two summer dates that he
We-
shared at least?
Yeah, there is nothing shared
Okay.
to this point.
Yep.
So-
And they were
But
out
he may
there.
also have been out of reach. So,
No, but we had these dates were at the.
For the last
These
meeting.
have been
Last
out
meeting,
before, yeah,
right.
that he was at, so.
Yes.
And he didn't say anything at that time, yeah.
So you had a
Okay.
motion and a second if you want to vote.
yes, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So we have an item here on the approval of the stipend, and we will table that for this evening and bring it back at a later meeting.
Okay.
And then next, we will take up consideration to authorize the superintendent to manage open enrollment for 2022-23.
I'd be happy to make that motion unless anyone has further discussion on it.
Or did you have an intro?
I just did say that in this particular case, we would be or authorizing the superintendent to accept applications and review them on a case-by-case basis. And just to reiterate, there is no guarantee that the application will be accepted. There is no appeal process. There's no transportation, and there are no siblings. But we would be authorizing him to make this choice, or make this recommendation, make a decision, case by case.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. The vote was unanimous. And then we will move on to consideration of the minutes. And we have a copious number of minutes, as you can see. So we have listed here that these could be considered as a consent agenda unless there are any specific sets of minutes which we would like to, that a member may want to take out of the consent agenda, if need be.
I move to do my consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That vote is unanimous. Let me see, we will move on to the chair report. This is our last regular meeting of the school year, although we still have one meeting scheduled for later in June, but that's after the school year is done. So as we had said at Springtown meeting, it's been a challenging year. We were very happy to welcome Dr. Hackett last July, so it is very exciting to mark his first year, which is rapidly approaching.
Unbelievable.
It has been fast.
Yep.
We
like to keep it moving.
Yes, snap.
I think you'll make it to July.
So.
Thank you. I appreciate the confidence.
So, we saw some highs and lows in there between thinking that last fall would be a normal start to the school year to dealing with new variants and sub-variants over the fall and winter and adapting along the way. And during the spring, we've returned to some normalcy for the first time since 2020. And we've welcomed back many of our traditional events, or we brought them back with a twist. And hopefully that was hopefully there were improvements in there. So as we've seen in our assessment presentation tonight, throughout all of this change and up and down over the school year, our educators, our administrators, and our staff have been a constant to whom our students and our community can turn. And we thank them wholeheartedly for their dedication and their passion to and for the profession, and most of all to our children. So I wish everyone in our school community a happy, restful, and rejuvenating summer until we meet again in the fall, or our next June 21st meeting. So,
Wear your helmets, swim in water safety.
That's right. That's right. So, yes.
Check your car seats.
That's
Yes.
right.
And I'll turn it over to Dr. Hackett for a superintendent report.
Really don't have anything to add. I would just want to say that I think tonight was a great demonstration of just the tremendous amount of work that's gone on, and I do think it puts us in a different category than a lot of other school systems that I really am truly familiar with in terms of what they're doing in and around assessment, but also just the fact that it's not just assessment, it is a built-in alignment of curriculum as well. And the fact that we're starting with the end in mind with the assessment and working backwards, and I just really credit to Dr. Elenema and others who there's just so much talent in this room, and I hope that I'm still far enough removed from, and still new enough here to be able to be honestly quite amazed and in somewhat awe with the amount of talent that is here. So, and the fact that so much work was done during the pandemic is also just an incredible both feat and testament to the dedication of the people who are here. Because I can tell you that most places it was just shut down, get through, and there wasn't really a lot of curriculum work that was going on. A lot of PD around how to do things remote, but actual curriculum work just really kind of came to a halt in a lot of places. So it was, and I appreciate you as a committee taking the time to listen to that, because I think it provides a level of understanding of the complexity of what we're talking about with student learning. And it really also just the involvement and how invested the teachers are in the work, which makes all the difference, as we know, in terms of really getting to some kind of implementation fidelity. So even though I've been here, I learned a lot myself tonight. It was great. So
Thank you. Next, we have future agenda items, of which we've included the superintendent's summative evaluation, the Lynch project update, central office relocation options. We will also be having our recognition of retiring employees coming up. Goal setting over the summer. Let me just see.
Do we need
Yes.
to, we had talked about moving the superintendent's evaluation to July. Do we need to formally do that? Or can we just
I
decide
think it's
we're doing
just
that?
when we schedule it.
I think consensus is good.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm wondering if at some point the disposition of the Sanborn House should be on here as well. You know, what if anything needs to be done to either prevent further deterioration or decide whether, hopefully we'd never decide that we would tear it down, but do we give it to the town? Just what if we're not using it, or do we have a future use for it? Just at some point we might want to revisit that.
That's a very good point.
I would think that would come up around the central office relocation options
Right.
discussion as well, though. I think that's all tied in together.
Oh, okay. I thought that
Or
I thought there had been a decision not to consider that as part of central office relocation.
No, in
Or-
terms of what are we going to do? Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Or longer,
Right.
like longer term after the Lynch project,
Yeah.
maybe central office,
Right.
Right.
raise the money separately or something. Okay.
Right.
But
Anyway,
your point is taken.
Still,
so, yeah.
Yeah.
evidence here
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Yep.
that we need to figure out what we're doing with it.
Right.
Just as I said earlier, again, preschool, I think we should put that on the agenda.
Yes.
And for our next meeting, I mean, we are meeting tomorrow night just to do our reorg, so people know.
Right.
That was going to come up in our next meetings.
Yep. All set?
Okay, next meeting tomorrow night, 6 p.m., same bat time and bat channel. Actually, I believe it's...
Sorry, that's my
Virtual.
fault.
Yes. I did hear that recently.
Yes,
So-
tomorrow's virtual.
Oh,
Yes,
that's good.
so a slightly different bat channel. And then after that, we have our June 21st meeting, of which I actually have the time as TBD.
It says 6 on our agenda.
It does say 6?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Motion to
And-
adjourn?
Yes, I would accept a
moved.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a big thank you, as always, to WinCam for your support, to Haley, and to our audience.
And a big thank you from the Royal Blue softball team, because I'll be in time for the game.
If you don't get rained out.
Oh, no, we're good. We're good.
Big thank you to my children.
All right.
Okay.
Let's hope we get some rain, though, knock down the pollen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully.
It's all stuck to my car.